Okay, so now hopefully everything works fine. So please, Cesario, go ahead.
All right.
By the way, actually, if you have any questions, just type them in the chat, and we can talk about them at the end. Or if there's something about understanding, I guess you can also interrupt Cesario.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great. So thanks a lot, Robert. I'm going to share some ideas from Creating Agile Organizations that I hope are useful for people coaching less adoptions. So it's going to be tailored to less people. And the idea is to, I don't know, maybe talk a little bit, let's say 30 minutes or so, and then we could have a conversation, Q&A, until we get bored, and then close the session. Oh.
I will put on mute anyone who's not talking besides Cesario.
All right.
Unless you have a question.
Okay. So that's more or less the idea. So let's get started. So who am I? My name is Cesario. I'm a LeSS trainer since 2015 or 16. And what I do is I coach and I do trainings all around Europe. And I wrote 3 books, and the last one is the book that Robert just introduced, and we're going to have a chat about that. So, let me start by asking this question. Have you ever seen a LeSS adoption? And, this is sounds like a trick question, but maybe it's not a trick question. I wrote 2 case studies. You can find them on the LeSS.org website about LeSS adoptions. One was at a Dutch bank with 3 letters, and another one was at a technical company that makes radars. As they're on the LeSS website, maybe you think these are LeSS adoptions, but are they LeSS adoptions? And I think that's interesting to explore and to take it from that perspective when we talk about creating agile organizations. And I want to add to that. I was a couple of weeks ago in Berlin having this wonderful conference. I think it was the best LeSS conference until date. And I was specifically interested in organizations that would share their LeSS adoption stories. So I visited 3 or 4, I think. And maybe some of you have been there. Also in Berlin, and these adoptions were successful and very inspiring to attend. And but then again, were these LeSS adoptions? And as many of you know, maybe the beginners who see LeSS for the first time don't. But LeSS is this framework, but it has these rules, and these roles and these responsibilities and these events and these artifacts. But none of the talks at the LeSS conference followed all the rules or had all the roles. Some didn't have Scrum Masters, some didn't do refinements, some didn't do planning, some had 14 teams or 13 teams in one area. So but they said these are still LeSS adoptions, and they were still getting success. So maybe this question, right, are we doing a LeSS adoption, is not super interesting. But what's interesting is, are we achieving the goals we set out to achieve? And, the goal, important goal, in my opinion, is, to, achieve whatever business goals your organization wants to achieve. And the goal of, applying a framework like Scrum or LeSS is to develop what we call capabilities, so that we can actually execute or achieve those business goals. And a capability is it's actually very simple. It's maybe we need different technical capabilities. These teams need to do stuff that they are not able to do now technically, or the people need to learn new techniques or new skills, that we don't have at the moment. So we need to develop those. Or these could be social related capabilities, leadership styles and, interactions between people and so on. So that we can, develop these capabilities that we need to be successful. And yeah, developing these capabilities is key. And of course, and not following all the rules. And of course, if you've been in contact with LeSS, you know that LeSS is this framework, and it's intentionally left open. So it's intentionally leaves a lot of space for you to fill in all the details, so that it fits your context, right? It's not very prescriptive. But then the question becomes, if we have to fill in all these details, well, how do we figure out these details? Who can help me figure out these details? So that I can be successful. And I think there are two challenges in this case. How do I, tailor a framework, in this case LeSS, to my specific needs? As all LeSS adoptions that I have seen have done that. So the question is, well, how can you do that without shooting yourself in the foot? But then an organization is larger most of the time than one LeSS group, let's say, and whatever you design outside of your LeSS group can significantly impact also the capabilities of the organization. So how do I design the larger organization? I think these are two challenges that I faced at least, and the people speaking at the LeSS conference in Berlin faced. So maybe you faced that too, and that's what I want to talk a little bit about. So one way to look at an organization design is through this model. It's called the STAR model from Galbraith. And it has all these components, like, and the important one is strategy. That's the plan to be successful as an organization. And in order to do that, we need structure, the right processes, and so on, the right rewards, right people, and so on. And if you look at frameworks, mainly they talk about structure and process. And most of them talk only about the team's structure. So they forgot. It's not that they don't forget, they just don't cover the rest of the structure of the organization. They don't focus on the teams. And they think processes, but organizations think that process is a mindset, but only a mindset and a process. And the other components are often, not covered that well. So, in order to be successful, in order to fill in the details that frameworks leave open, and in order to make improvements that cut across the larger organization, the Creating Agile Organizations approach might help. So let's delve into that a little bit, how it might help. And so what is this approach? So the Creating Agile Organization approach is actually different from a framework. I think that's important to see. So it doesn't have any rules, doesn't have any roles, events, and all that stuff. What it does have, it has Organization Design Axioms, like from math. Math has all these axioms, like the 2 points between. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line in the Euclidean space, So there are organization design axioms too, So that's what one of the things Creating Agile Organizations covers. But it also offers principles and guidelines, all around, I understand what I'm doing, so this is important. I understand what I'm doing, and I need to fill in details, or maybe I don't want to use any framework at all, and I just want to build this from scratch because I already used frameworks for a couple of years. So how should I do that then? What can guide me? What can help me make decisions? That's actually what it is about. And And one of the key ideas is, it's the systemic approach. It's the subtitle, and it's like systems, but then across the whole organization. And one of my favorite guys is Akov, this old guy here who unfortunately passed away already. And he has these simple systems principles that we probably all know. Like, if you want to improve the whole, you first have to know what the whole is. That's important. And that could be, in LeSS, for example, that would be a product group. What's the product? Actually, what you're doing is determining what the whole is. But it could be many things. It could also be a service, or it could be like a process, as long as you can tie it to, a profit and loss, as long as you can tie it to solving end user customer problems. And there could be many holes, and there are many holes in your organization. So the idea is you first have to identify the holes, and then you identify the parts that are, essential to for that to execute the mission or the purpose of that larger whole. And once you have that, you can then work on improving the parts, or the teams in this case, within the product group, and the interaction between the product groups. If you look at LeSS from a LeSS perspective. So actually, you come up with something like this, which we call some kind of prototype. And in LeSS, this could all be product groups, but in reality, these could be also services and other things. So we have these groups here centered around, value for end customers, and there are these shared services in the middle. And of course, there are maybe thousands of people working in functional organizations, which we have not drawn here. But okay, the question is, how do you find these holes, right? How do you determine what is a shared service or not? How do you improve the interactions? That's what you can maybe use in your LeSS adoptions from CAO, from Creating Agile Organizations. And if you zoom in to one of these groups, you might see things that you might not see in a LeSS group. So there's a difference. So they both have probably a senior manager, and maybe it's the PO, or maybe it's the line manager. And as this is a large thing, like a real product in LeSS, this is probably a senior guy or girl, And then we have teams, maybe, cross-functional teams, autonomous teams. Those are the people in the middle. Feature teams, as we know in LeSS, they contain many functions so that they are cross-functional and then can deliver something to done. And they work off the same backlog, But if you take a systemic approach, which we do, there might be other parts which are essential, meaning, without that part, the whole cannot achieve its purpose or its mission, that, do not necessarily be in the cross-functional teams, but we still need them. And we need them to be in the group instead of, as a shared service. So how to make that decision, how to determine which parts these are, and how to integrate, and how to have them communicate. So these are some of the questions that CEO can help you with. It consists of 5 things that I try to put in a graphic just 25 minutes ago. So this is the systemic approach. I gave a short overview of that. It contains these organization design axioms. It contains 12 organization design principles, and then it has some guidelines for coaching and for adoption. So that is actually in 10 minutes an overview of the type of problems you might have as a LeSS coach, and how a CEO might help you with that. And so for the next 15 minutes, I would just want to give you some examples before we go into QA. I want to just give you some examples of what might be super interesting for LeSS coaches. And speaking without feedback is hard, but I'll just keep going. All right, so there is, for example, a guideline called, contain reciprocal task interdependencies. This is one of the organizational design guidelines. And what is it about? It says, there are these 3 types of dependencies, and maybe it's worth considering those. There's this pooled type of dependency, pooled with double O, which is a dependency on a shared resource. It could be a person or a testing system, or a department. There are sequential dependencies, between tasks or between teams, meaning, one task does its work, then it can hand it over to the other team or to the other department, and then, we don't need to talk anymore. It's just good enough. They can just go and fix it without, coordinating again. And then there are reciprocal dependencies, which is the bottom one here, which they hurt the most. And those are what we mostly talk about, especially in Scrum and LeSS, where, design influences coding, or coding influences testing, and testing influences design. And so everybody influences everybody. And that's why we want, one of the reasons why we want, cross-functional teams. But there are more dependencies. So you can use that to make decisions, make organization design decisions. So for example, if you, this is a technique, it's called a heat map. You see some components in the top, like portal and app and, web and civil components. And you see on the, in the y-axis, you see F1, F2, those are features. And you can actually, study or, do a workshop and discover, well, which components or which teams, if these are component teams, need to do something in order to develop a feature. And you will get some kind of distribution. And that could be useful, to make decisions about team composition. But it can also be useful, if you discover, oh, these are pooled dependencies only, but we need them a lot, maybe it means, let's say that sales, or no, sales is not here, legal is here. Let's say that legal is pooled, but we need them a lot. We need them 7% of the time, whatever. Maybe that's a reason, to include them in the product group, but not in the teams, because, the teams are already overloaded, and, what are these legal people going to do, and so on. So there's all these, context-specific issues that you want to decide, and this could help, make you, help you make more informed decisions, and it's all about finding this balance, between a component team, which is Salesforce, which is not very useful if you want to be LeSS, you want adaptable teams. So the balance between that and between a feature team, which can only work on one feature, for example, it can only work on F9, which is, well, it's end-to-end, but not very, you can really use it to work on other features. So actually what you want to do is, you want to find you want teams that cover the greatest area, let's say. And this heat map, you can also, of course, capture it in different ways. Like, for example, this is typically to show it like the idea graphically. You see, so these are here we see 4 features, like the yellow one, the green one, and the red one, and so on. And then we said, okay, which component teams need to do something? Well, it turns out that the 3 in the middle, they need to do like 99%, we need them. So if we have to make a choice, then we say, well, these guys and ladies, sorry, are need to work a lot together, because, they heat up a lot. And let's say the dependency is also reciprocal, then it becomes a no-brainer to say, well, if we have to make a choice, we cannot do everything. Let's choose these 3 ones first, because, that gives us the most bang for the buck. And then there are techniques, to scale this to many, many teams. And you can actually, then make decisions about that. So reciprocal dependencies hurt the most. So if you have to choose those first, then sequential dependencies, and then third is pooled dependencies. That would be the order of making design decisions. So this is an example, shortly shared. Another one that you might recognize, not by this name, but this is a organization design principle again. It's about unit functions. And you probably know, if you've been in LeSS class, in Robert's LeSS class, you probably know the contract game. You know, where, you know, business or sales sells stuff, and then, you know, they're locally optimized, you know, they want to fix their targets, and then they hand it off to R&D, and then R&D and sales start this negotiation, right? Where sales wants to put everything in the contract, and of course, R&D doesn't want to put everything in the contract because it's their ass on the line, so they want to put less in the contract. So they're actually competing and locally optimizing. And bad things happen, you know, if you want to know the details, you know, Robert has a class on that. So bad things happen, like technical debt will be created and stuff. But this is actually just one example of a larger, a more general principle, which is coupling of unit functions. And unit here means, you know, departments, for example. And, you know, the problem is that, you know, if you put it in this matrix, problem is like, you know, this product development unit is responsible, like, let's say, for being on time and on budget and developing attractive products. You can see that in the top left of this matrix. So the product development unit, like in the top row, is responsible for, that's the R, well, developing and, you know, being on time and so on. And the sales unit, let's say, you know, that's the one to the right of product development unit. You know, he's responsible, the big R, for maximizing income or whatever, achieving their targets. And that's all cool, except if it's coupled. You know, except if, you know, sales, while sales tries to achieve its goal, its functions, it actually makes it, you know, impedes, you know, the product development unit to achieve its goals, and vice versa. In that case, in the contract game, this is obvious, but in general, it means that these functions, like sales unit and product development unit, are coupled, and that's what creates this, you know, this contract game. That's what creates unnecessary coordination. That's what creates goal conflicts. That's what creates, you know, delays, you know, and all that stuff. So this is one of the principles that we then the book offers you, so that you can actually apply it in general when you make design decisions. So that's an example, and, you know, it's problematic for less people, because, you know, coupling between functions lowers the adaptability, which is, I think, straightforward, you know, to understand. And then the last one I just wanted to share, just three I thought would be interesting. It's this strategic focus. So, you know, product development focus is one of three focuses or foci that are available. And when we work in Scrum, when we work in LeSS, we usually assume we are having a product focus. And a product focus is all about, you know, being first to market, you know. It's all about, you know, structuring around products, as you know, in LeSS. It's about innovation. It's about, you know, having features and technology faster than your competitor, you know. So this focus, if management believes that product focus is important to be successful, it means a different thing. It means, you know, more or less this, what you can see here, you know. They're structured around products, you know. Adaptability is about reacting to changes in technology and markets and so on. Value is probably measured in new features. But this is different than, I don't know, an operations focus. Adaptability is not about being first to market or adapting to market need. It's about adapting to changes in volume. Like, you know, it's Christmas now, or there's been a storm, and we have, you know, 20,000 people calling. The claims process, or, you know, 3 buses arrive at McDonald's, you know. It means it's a different thing, what they mean with adaptability. And there's another one, customer focus, which is not the same as product focus. we tend to mix them up a lot in Agile and in Scrum and in LeSS and so on. But it's different. Now you're structured not around products, but around customers, and, value is in, understanding these customers and actually trying to satisfy exactly what they need, instead of, making an opinion about what's the best for the product also, So these are all inputs that we describe in the book that you can use, to make, to determine what the capabilities actually are that you need, and then that can guide you in, filling in the details that the frameworks don't provide. So let's. I'm checking the time. So let's close with a few differences, just maybe to spark some discussion. So these are some differences that I thought, okay, maybe this is interesting to share here. You probably know the right one. It's a descaling framework with experiments, guides, and so on. And a CEO is just a set of axioms and principles and guidelines to design and coach. I think that's maybe an interesting difference. LeSS is, in my opinion, product development focus, while CEO is product operational and customer focus. It covers those three. I think systems thinking on product level is LeSS, the product group, and CEO is systemic and has, of course, the content to back that up at the organizational level. It's a different level. LeSS is Scrum. It's about how can I apply the beauty of single team Scrum at a larger scale. CEO is about cross-functional teams and whatever process you want. You don't need to do Scrum. You don't even have to have iterations. In many situations you don't need that. And LeSS, of course, to provoke a little bit, maybe is one PBL, but one PBL, I don't know. It's useful, of course, but if the group contains other parts which are essential, maybe it doesn't make sense to have one PBL for the other non-essential part, for the other essential parts. So that's what I wanted to say about that in half an hour. Late in the afternoon, for you, for me, I'm in a different time frame. So if you want to learn more, we have the book, of course, we have a website, and we have some courses coming up. In Berlin, actually, a course coming up, which is interesting if you want to learn more about that. Yeah, I think that's nice what I wanted to say for going to conversation or Q&A.
Cool, thanks so much, Cesario. That's amazing. I mean, I just shared the link to your event in Berlin, which will happen from the 6th to the 7th, so 2 days, from 9 to 5 p.m. And I will take care of the organization here and so on. Yeah, I'm pretty much looking forward to that. If everyone has questions, you can obviously raise your hand and ask it, or you can put it also in the chat. I will maybe start from my side. I was very excited, to be honest, when I heard about the book, after I read your book, when the first kind of like draft was out. And I think I also told you in person before the last year's conference that I was very excited to read it, because I think it addressed a lot of things that people are don't know about. They might know about them if they deal with LeSS, but LeSS is always comes into the same discussion with all the scaling frameworks. I see a lot of time people, coming with SAFe, LeSS, nexus, whatever, put it all in one sentence. And so I know a lot of people who just understand that you cannot copy something and reuse it. And unfortunately, with LeSS, it seems like the same kind of way, even though as a framework, as you said, it leaves a lot of open things, and you have to adapt it. But well, my question is, I think most of I see their book is divided into parts. Like the one is that the concepts, the principles that you're saying, the guidelines, and then the second part, which is more practical and talks about like how you can actually do a change and adoption in the organization with a lot of practical tools. Do you see the principles quite similar to LeSS? So going back to your slides with the differences as the same, would you say the principles are fairly similar? You have systems thinking, you have flow versus resource efficiency, which ties into lean thinking and queuing theory. Do you see any changes there in the principle side?
So I think we are like trying to make this types of organizations which are fit for purpose. Let's use another word here, and I think LeSS is the most beautiful one for product development. And in LeSS, as you know, we have these cool principles, like you just mentioned them, and with these principles, many of them, for example, LeSS is Scrum. That principle we don't have.
Right.
But many of these principles, like systems thinking, lean thinking, these are general applicable, independent of your strategic focus. So it's no surprise, that many frameworks, especially in the agile space, have these principles, even if they don't know they have it. Even if they don't write it down, they still have it. Yeah. But I think there are LeSS principles that CAO doesn't have, like LeSS Scrum. But there are also some principles I think that CAO has that LeSS doesn't have, and these are organizational design principles. I think I just showed you one: decouple unit functions. That's a principle that LeSS has just for one instance, which is the contract game. Yeah. So what CAO does, it abstracts from that and makes it general. And so it does with many of these things. And these are organizational design principles because it's not specific to product focus.
Cool. Yeah, that's very interesting. I like that, and also I love how you basically throughout the book kind of show how to use principles like system thinking on your understanding your organization and even changing your organization. I mean, this is something that we do in the LeSS course all the time, like displaying how the LeSS framework rules, why are they in place, and why, if we want to optimize for adaptability at low costs, it doesn't make sense for product development to have more than one product backlog.
Maybe. Yeah. Right? So the difference here is, this is a nice one. The difference is, in LeSS, indeed, I also use lots of CLDs and so on. But that's more, we want to. So CLD is like to explain the framework, or as a coaching tool you can do
right
with your customers to have conversations about dynamics.
Retrospective,
for example. But in CEO, the approach of designing the organization is systemic. So it's not we are using systems thinking just to understand stuff, we are using systems to make decisions about the organization design. So this is one level up, you know. So we, you know, this is, it's not only about, you know, what are the dynamics. It's about, you know, we just know that you cannot remove essential parts from a whole without, you know, the whole losing its capability to achieve its mission.
Yeah.
So this is important. So we should then, therefore, for example, we say we should identify these essential parts. And all non-essential parts, will throw them away. They are just in the way.
Yeah.
So, and if this essential part is 3 departments to the left, well, we want that part here. And how do we do that? You know, do we merge the whole department, or do we just get a couple of people? You know, but the systemic approach is about, you know, it's like it's at a broader level compared to less, in my opinion.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Even though, I mean, you know, yes, I agree. I think in less courses, we focus a lot with system thinking on showing, understanding, you know, the dynamics that we have within the product group, and why some rules are like that, or what would be implicit if we integrate outsourcing or all stuff like that. But for me, it was clear actually that, you know, this is not just a tool and you know, something that you can apply for the LeSS framework or think about the product development, but for anything that you do in the organization as a whole, for any kind of change, to help you reflect and discuss with senior level people and everyone involved in a transformation, what the systems and the dynamics are, and what would you change. So I always understand this, and as a way to you know, model the system that you want to have, to discuss about how you understand bigger changes in the organization. Yeah.
Cool.
And yeah, and what I like a lot is, I mean, and regarding the second point, like the second half of the book, also there I saw a lot of tools that have not been mentioned in the experiment book from Craig and Bass, but are quite additional great ways, like you showed the heat map that I use in most all the LeSS adoptions, because it's a beginning at like, I need to understand how we want to self-design the teams, or like help them self-design, and we would like to understand from the customer perspective what are features, and I even showed it sometimes in my last trainings, you know, this approach, because it ties well together with the setting up of the teams.
I think that's how the book is separated, right? The first part is like organization design guidelines, and then the second part is how do you coach it, and it has a lot of, it's full of practical stuff. Yeah, but I think it's important to understand that the heat map. Why is there a heat map? The heat map comes because you take a systemic approach. Because
Right.
I want to identify the parts. I want to identify the essential parts. You know, I want to identify the non-essential parts. It's not because we want to make feature teams. Of course, you can use it for that, but that's not the goal. The goal is, it's one technique to identify, you know, what parts are the parts of the larger group, the larger whole, the larger servers, the larger, you know, end-to-end process. That's the deeper goal. Yeah. And of course, in feature teams, it's very practical. You can easily determine that. But it also applies to not to feature teams.
Yeah. Pretty nice. Cool. So I asked a couple of questions. I will love from others people maybe to jump in and ask questions or give feedback to what they, you know, understood so far, what they, you know, would like to understand more. no questions. Anyone that maybe raise your hand if you read already? Oh, Felicity, you wanna? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe it's not a, it's a question, of course, but maybe a question to your experience that how do you, how many, context, during, you have a design, an ideal way, how it could look like based on the, um, uh, what kind of organization, what strategic business goals they have. So you have the guidelines and you decide on one to be organization, but many times this is a too big step for the organization. So a question is, how many times do you, maybe it's in a funny way, but okay, so how many iteration steps do you think, or how do you approach this problem? Let me phrase like that.
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's also a question that that less people ask a lot when doing less adoptions. I mean, less companies. So the idea is that we need this. We need to come up with this organization design, you know, that we believe will, by working in that design, that's the key point. So we need to come up with a design, and then when we start working in that design, the more we work in it, the more we develop the capabilities that we don't have. That's the setup. And then the question is, okay, which design is that? You know, so we do all these studies, use all the guidelines, and you come up with an initial design. And then, of course, you do it, and darn, you know, you will learn a lot, and that's okay, you know. You don't. That's well what it means if you want to be, you know, improving. You know, have to periodically have a look what you're doing and then change. Now, a key step is because you know we take this systems approach and we organize around, you know. If it's a commercial company, let's keep it simple, profit and loss, real profit and loss. So these large chunks, if you study that correctly, these chunks will not vary that much. You know, if you are a bank and you have business loans, well, you probably had business loans 10 years ago, and you probably have business loans in 10 years, you see. So that's not the problem. The learning will be much less at that level than within such a group. Maybe there's 500 people in that group. Their changes will be, organization design changes will be bigger and more frequent. So that's a thing to consider. And then the other one is, you know, one of the change guides is, you know, that you know, we don't like really enterprise, like, you know, we're going to, so we are a bank, we are 20,000 people. Well, let's change 20,000 people at once. You know. We don't prefer that for two reasons. Well, it's the risk is too big to do it. So even if somebody wants to do it, you know, it will take a lot of time and a lot of meetings, a lot of signatures, and it will be, well, very risky. So we say, well, what is a more, you know, incremental approach? And the incremental approach would be like, what about doing one group or two groups at once? And this depends on, can you give the group, if you do more than one, the coaching and guidance that it deserves? So if you only have 5 people who are good at this, you know, don't do two groups, because, you know, you will, yeah, the people, you cannot give the attention to the people that they deserve. So that would be a way to look at it. So we would, the guideline would be, well, see if you can do it incremental, strongly recommended, and ensure that you can give the coaching and support that they actually require. And then, of course, when you are in this loop, I can show a graph. I don't know if it helps, but it's this graph. So it's all, you know, everything is going on because the end state is dynamic, not static. So there is no end state. It's not, well, we now have done whatever it is, a transformation. No, the end state is we're constantly learning, and some things change like in greater intervals, and within the product group they will change in shorter intervals. And the other thing I want to share is, in Holland at least, if you look at the newspapers, then every year the newspapers are full of reorganizations. So it's not magic or something, it happens all the time. So and if it makes the newspaper, it probably is a big reorganization.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is that you would start small with enough coaching, and then you would reiterate all the time, basically, ideally
Of course,
every sprint, but obviously you wouldn't do a change that often. But you see when the organization is already able to tackle more change and is in need of more change, and you would do that, right?
Yes. So the idea is like it's the idea that we know from iterative incremental development. You do it and then you learn, and then you use what you learned to do the next step. And the next step could be, that we do 6 months, these 2 groups, and then we learn a lot, and then that learning we then put into the next 3 groups that we're going to, go to work with. That's a much more like incremental approach, learning stuff and then using that learning to make the next steps. Yeah.
Cool.
But it depends on the maturity. It depends on how much coaching or support you can give the groups.
Right.
If you have an army of 100 like super good people, maybe you can do a lot in parallel. But usually that's not the case.
No. Haven't seen that yet.
I haven't seen that, no.
Okay, more questions. Eike.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robert. My name is Ejikeme, and thank you, Cesario, for the presentation. I really enjoyed it, also understanding different types of dependencies, seeing it that we really have 3 types of dependencies. It's awesome seeing where I have some conflict is one of your differences between CAO and then the LeSS.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at uses cross-functional teams with any iterative and incremental processes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to LeSS, LeSS is Scrum. It is about figuring out the principles, purpose, and elegance of Scrum. I don't see any difference between the two, because Scrum is also all about iterative and incremental. And then you say there are places you can actually use Scrum without being iterative or incremental. My question is, if you're using a Scrum, which is not incremental and iterative, is that really a Scrum, or you just call it a Scrum?
I think maybe if I can jump in, Cesario, you can comment on that. I think what the point that Cesario was trying to make here is that LeSS is really focused on Scrum, and yes, you're right. If you do Scrum with and especially the core principles behind real Scrum, as you say it, you will be doing cross-functional teams, you will be doing iterative and incremental. Scrum is more than that. But I think the point that Cesario was trying to make here is that you don't have to do even Scrum to actually create an agile organization. You have to, you can do other things. You can look at, other frameworks, or use Kanban, use different ways in different teams. Unless we don't integrate Kanban teams into with Scrum teams together and work together, we all the teams within the product development group will be forced, I would say, to do Scrum. But we might apply techniques from Kanban, like working process limit and stuff like that. Now, I think in what Cesario is trying to say here and was trying to do with the book is say we can be even more global and liberal and allow for different ways of working, even if it's not Scrum, as long as iterative incremental and you have cross-functional teams, you can be more flexible in the way how you do your work. And that's, I think, the point here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So less is Scrum is the principle in less. So in less, if you do less, you do Scrum. But you know, Scrum might not be appropriate for, I don't know, operations. Maybe there are, maybe I'm sure there are other frameworks where operations. So I'm not talking about IT operations. Okay. So maybe that's confusing. When I use operations, I don't mean IT operations. I mean the operational focus. So where value is in efficiency, value is in low cost to serve. You know, value is in low transaction costs. You know, adaptability is in change in volume. That's what I mean with operations. So McDonald's, a group of 100 people that handles insurance claims. That's an operational focus. So in this case, you know, it could be, and in my experience many times it is, doesn't make that much sense to have Scrum. But you want teams to be cross-functional so that they can help each other out, because still you want that adaptability. But you know, sprint planning, maybe, you know, sprint review, you know. So there are maybe other frameworks. Robert said, well, for example, Kanban, but there are other also feature-driven development and so on that I can share if you want. That could be much more appropriate. And that's the challenge that you have to make, you have to face, and that's where the book can help you make decisions. So if you say, okay, we're going to do Scrum for everything, I would say, well, that's providing the answer before you know the question, which is not very helpful.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Just a follow-up question, if there's no one coming up again. On this table again, I'm seeing the second covers product, operational, and customer-focused products and or services. And then the other one is covers product development.
Focus, yeah.
Focus for products and services. In less principle, there's whole product focus and there's customer-centric. I did not see from the left and right side of the less. Does it mean in less we don't also focus on customers, while the principle states customer-centric?
Yeah, so that's, you know, of course we make products for customers. And of course, when we make product development, we need to, you know, understand how customers react and what they want to buy. But a strategic product focus is different than a customer focus. And, you know, I try to show that here. So let me see, if you look at the slide, so product focus, you know, has other adaptability goals. You know, its organized structure is different. It's organized around products. You know, we want to have time to market, you know, we want to have, you know, we want to tell, or as Steve Jobs says, well, we will help the customer remember what problems they have, because we will make solutions for problems they don't even realize they have. You know, this is so different than from a customer focus. Of course, in the product focus, we have customers, but in the customer focus, you know, we are not structured, for example, around products. We are structured around customers. For example, we are structured around small and medium enterprises, which is customer segment. And adaptability is different. You know, we want to adapt to customer change. You want to, you know, have deep customer intimacy. You know, we want to understand them and try to satisfy exactly the needs. So it's just a different focus. It's just a different strategic focus. And in my opinion, product less focuses on product focus, not on customer focus and not on operations focus. But this is a key input. if you want to make decisions, at the larger organization, if you want to make design decisions, as I try to depict in this graphic. So the capabilities depend on, in this case, less. If you do less, because we're in a less meetup, but also strategic focus. So here might be a conflict. I'm going to do less, but I'm in an operational focused company. Or conflicts will happen. So you have to be aware that operations focus doesn't want product focused metrics. It's a different thing. So that's why that's what I mean with the column in that table. But the table is longer. There's 12 or 13. I think I can paste the URL if you want to see the complete list.
Yeah, that would be great if you can put it in the chat. Thanks for the question. I think it was a great question. Any more questions? Actually, I had one more thing, Cesario. Like you, as a LeSS trainer, also do both kind of LeSS courses and creating agile organization courses. Mm-hmm. Can you say more about, like, if someone hasn't been doing any of those, who would you actually point into doing creating agile organization course, and who would you point into doing a LeSS course?
Okay, so I think let me just share this slide if I can find it. It must be here somewhere, that slide. Yeah, so this green one, this is 2 days designing agile organizations. So if you want to go to this one, I recommend that you have already had a LeSS course. So you must be like senior. Like, I don't know what that means. I hate the word, but you must know what you're talking about, because we will not cover basic stuff in this 2-day course. This is like organization design, and it's assumed that dynamics of product backlogs, and dynamics of feature teams and component teams, and so on, which is excellently covered in LeSS course. So actually, if you want to go to the green one, well, you get much more value if you already have been through a CLP, a Certified LeSS Practitioner. Now the orange one, this is like how to do it. This is all about techniques. So that's why it's called creating or coaching. So it's 1 day org design, like overview, and then 2 days coaching adoptions. And if you're doing a LeSS adoption or not, that's the things we cover in the 3-day course apply to LeSS or not LeSS, because LeSS is just product focus. So that's the main difference. I don't know if that answers your questions, Robert, but.
No, it does. I mean, that's great. And again, I think that's pretty nice because like it is more like with your book, I think, first of all, you address easily more the senior management and people that are in charge of doing organizational change. Obviously, the name is appealing, and they're very much interested in reading the book, while I think LeSS it doesn't sound very appealing to a senior manager. Oh, I need to read the large scale Scrum book. So that's something that
I don't know.
I feel is very, very great, very good to have, and also it addresses a lot the product management people and people about product having senior position in product management and product which again LeSS I feel doesn't address. But as you say, I think there's a lot of information that is covered already within LeSS, and if you go to if you just do product development with multiple teams, you might it helps to understand better Scrum, and LeSS helps you with that in my perspective tremendously. And then, as you say, it helps them to if you go broader and want to dive deeper more on the design of organization, and those choices that you can make as a senior person in the organization, then going to your course is extremely helpful. Yeah, so thanks for that. Any more questions? All right. If not, yeah, there we go. Anna.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Cesario, for your presentation. If it's possible, could you please tell something about how do you measure the outcome of when you use your approach in organization?
You mean the outcome of the adoption?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this is a good question. And of course, this question is asked all the time. And, you know, you might think, or you not might think, but let's say there are a lot of metrics, like, I don't know, EBM from Scrum.org, and, you know, flow metrics and whatnot. And, you know, and these could be useful, you know, because they give you insight about the process, for example, that is being used, or, you know, how fast things get done, or, you know, or, you know, whatever metrics you choose. But, you know, in this approach, what's important is, you know, you define these capabilities that you miss. Let me put this again here. I don't know if you can read it. So in the middle is this gap, the capabilities you don't have. So we identify, well, we don't have, well, our decision-making speed, let's make it very simple, is very bad. And therefore, you know, you know, when customers ask for a loan, you know, it takes us 3 months for them to know if we give them a loan or not, because we're so slow in decision-making. And that, you know, if we study the funnel, you know, we start with 10,000 customers in the start of the funnel, and only 2 actually closed the loan. And, you know, we studied this, and it's because we're so slow. So now we know what we need to measure. You know, the measure can be derived from the capabilities. That's one. So all that other, so that's one. The other one is, you know, if you have identified the whole, which is, you know, the product group, let's say, as we are in LeSS, this is a real product group, so it has profit and loss if it's a commercial company. So it probably, not probably, it already has metrics, business metrics, you know, so that's the ones you use. Yeah. So that's the answer.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions? And thanks, Anna, for speaking out. All right, if there are no further questions, then we can conclude the session. Thanks a lot, Cesario, for being here. Again, if a reminder, if you're interested to learn more, you can join the course or reach out to me or Cesario. Yes, so well, we're looking forward to our next LeSS meetup soon. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Nice
Thank
evening.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Anna, I see your hand. Yes.
Do I understand correctly that Florian has a question?
Yeah, but never mind. I guess we can discuss it in a small group, Cesario. It was about strategy, because I wasn't able to unmute myself quick enough.
I didn't see that. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Did you somehow thought the general organizational strategy, is it somehow infused into your model that at one point you have, let's say, kind of strategy flowing in both directions through the company? Yeah, I have it here, but is it somehow directly covered? I mean, I haven't read the book, so I just saw the slides that you have like...
We don't cover strategy in the book. That's, you know, the assumption is that senior management knows what it's doing, So
wow, you're very optimistic.
yes, so they must have, it's their job, you know, to make this, to guide this company through whatever challenges there are in the business market, and they should have a plan. And they come to the conclusion that in order to execute this plan, strategy, we don't believe we can do it with the current capabilities that we have. So we need new capabilities. So the starting point is that aha, which is not an aha at all, but that's the starting point. So if they don't know the strategy, then maybe they should go to McKinsey or something. I don't know how to do that. I don't know.
That is what they are doing all the time.
Yeah. So this trigger, this is we don't discuss how to do this. They must have a reason for change. Our competitors,
Okay.
They do twice. They hire Jeff Sutherland, and our competitors do twice the work in half the time. So we need to do something.
Agreed. So
yeah.
now
So what's the plan?
To do something, and let's say part of the strategy is to build an agile organization. So, and part of the strategy is to say, okay, we need a closer, let's say, to reevaluate the strategy more frequently, and to maybe get the feedback from the product group, from the front runners, from the guy close to the customer.
For example,
is there kind of let's say a format or an organizational design covered into it, or is it just figure it out, guys?
No, so we have to discover these capabilities. So we describe in the book how you can find them, and these capabilities are organizational capabilities, so speed of decision making, faster reacting, so collaboration, being able to react faster to change direction faster at product level, or at company level, or innovation, or customer intimacy, or efficiency, whatever the plan is that they believe we need to execute to be to not go bankrupt, or to face the economic challenges we have. And so how do you get to those capabilities? Well, that's we explain in the book. We explain techniques and principles how to get there. But the fact that the trigger, so to decide, and they say, well, we need to change something. Well, that's like Big Bang. That must already have happened.
Yeah, but it happens. Okay, yeah, but I guess
we're not salespersons,
Of course, yeah, but given the fact that senior level has realized, okay, and I mean, often it's not that they are free to realize, they're just forced to, because it's like shareholders.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, I'm asking a personal question because I'm in a big organization, and right now we are trying to change this. And our solution was to hire a chief catalyst from McKinsey. So exactly what you said. And he said, yeah, okay, now we do DSO, dynamic shared ownership, and we just flip the pyramid of hierarchy 90 degrees. Everything works. Everyone who was a manager now is not a manager, but an enabler and part of a team. And if not, I don't know what to do. So they already... there is no strategy at all. No guidance, no ideas.
What can you do,
Yeah, what can you do? Yeah. So everyone has a different understanding, and it's just no bi-directional. So it's a top-down, go agile without anything.
Yeah, so it's their company. So what can I say,
I think you have to point this out.
Yeah.
You have to, and that's what the image also showed, the star image, is that all the strategy has an influence on all the things. So if you have or a strategy that is competing with everything else that you do in the organization, you will end up with a really pretty bad situation in your in your strategy, because the strategy is it's an influence in everything in there. So if you come up with something that is not in common, so you put up structure or processes or rewards in place that are against the strategy, or building up with different strategies,
or against each other,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
so these things need to reinforce each other. So if you say, well, we want to do, I don't know, cross-functional teams, we want people to be multi-skilled specialists, and the only career path is a single function career path, then these are not really supporting each other. So all these components of the organization design need to be reinforcing. Yeah. And that's hard, and that's maybe you find some ideas in the book if you haven't read it, that can give you some,
read it, no.
Can give you some ideas about how to make steps.
Or you give it to your senior management to read.
Yeah, maybe I have to, but but I'm not that close.
Well, you can leave it on the porch, or
the board. No, like we are in DAX and have 120,000 employees worldwide. It's not that easy to approach some of the guys and say, hey, look, here's a good book. And right now all the agile strategy is it's a McKinsey guy. I don't know if he's good or not, but at least it's not very promising if you know that he's a McKinsey partner, in my opinion.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm unfair, but
I have no comments. Yeah.
Okay, I will stop the recording and